Todd Farwell, Global Packaging Director, responsible for is everything packaging at Cummins. Been there about 2 years, have responsibility for processes, tools, packaging management. We got returnable packaging operations, something new we're doing. I'll talk a little bit about that in my talk. Have a lot of experience with packaging, but I'm coming back to it after a hiatus of about, I guess, 12, 13 years. Before I came to Cummins, I was a strategic business planning manager at Caterpillar before Cummins. So that corporate strategies was kind of a fun job. I didn't know I'd like it so much. All right, there we go. So Cummins is, after all the cute pets and other things, I didn't put pictures of our products here, but we are headquartered in Columbus, Indiana. We've got over 73,000 people, employees globally, and we design cool stuff that make power, right? And so we're getting into a lot of battery technology. We're getting into hydrogen fuel cell, do a little bit with liquid natural gas too. So we're a pretty broad company, got great range of products from huge generators that help back up Google servers down to small little RV generators. So it's a really wide variety of products. We do take our corporate responsibility very seriously. So we believe in education. The environment is big. We've got this thing called Planet 2050. It's our aspirational goals so that we can be more environmentally responsible and equality of opportunity as well. So I'm going to talk about our journey, and as you can tell by our path, it hasn't been linear, right? It's been full of ups and downs, and I always like the hero's journey, right? And so it's fun, all the Greek mythology and Star Wars and all that kind of stuff. So you have your antagonists, you have your protagonists, and we'll kind of talk about those throughout. But step one of our journey. Really, I'm amazed. I've heard some stories of people that this journey has taken like 6 years to do. We did it in about 6 months. So it's been kind of incredible that we brought Spec-First on board from scratch as little as last year. But step one is basically you're going to take a look at kind of your current state, right? So we're looking at assessing our current state with our company goals versus our company goals. And the first one up was the environmental goals. Of course, we've got a duty to reduce about 84 million pounds of packaging waste annually. And that's a pretty big thing to do. Our returnable packaging program is a big component of that because currently in just North America alone, if you look at our inbound materials to our manufacturing facilities, 75% of that material isn't expendable. And we got to change that. We want to flip that script and go 75% in kind of a returnable packaging kind of configuration. The next step up, I pulled the compliance card, and this is kind of what the nature of the talk is about. But I've been gone from packaging, I'm back into packaging, and I'm shocked at the changes in the last 13 years or so, right? I did not know that we had to register our packaging in countries we do business, right? I had no idea. We were doing that, we weren't doing it. And so it was kind of a cool thing to learn that we've got to register our packaging in countries. We've also got all the EPR stuff, so it's the extended producer responsibility stuff that's going on. We just went live in India. I don't know if anybody did that as well, but we're starting to have our packaging be subject to EPR regulations there. It's all over the place. It's happening a little bit in America, but I expect more of it. Labeling requirements, right? I never paid attention to labels when I was at Caterpillar, when I was at packaging. Coming into Cummins, it's like our biggest quality issue, right? And now we've got all these multi-language requirements that we've got to get in there. And how are we going to put on a tiny label all the languages we need to have, right? We've got the European Commission on Waste just released their kind of findings. And look out, you're basically going to have to be in returnable packaging in Europe, right? And all of this just kind of built into this case, and I took it to my boss, and I made him very, very scared that we were not going to be compliant. And so that worked. I mean, it was like the trick, you know, and he was like, all right, I'm behind this. So it was great work by my team and others to get him on board for that. And so we've got other things too. We've got a big misalignment between it's not an NPI program. We call it VPI, Value Package Introduction. Same thing as NPI, really. But we're supposed to have 100% of all of our packaging specs documented through every time we do one of those projects. About 7 to 15% of new parts get actually documented, because we have a very difficult system that was in place. Currently, you know, we went live Monday with Spec-Right, so that old system is dead, which I'm happy about. But we also did surveys that said, hey, what do you need, you know, from a stakeholder perspective and a user perspective? And one comment stood out to me. Our old system, it took 1 hour to put in one part number. And imagine that if you've got to change 100 parts in a VPI program, you're like, that's 100 hours of people's time, you know, so nobody was doing it. And I can't blame them. Our environmental and regulatory manager did a little survey. We're out of order, sorry. There we go. I'm gonna have to go back. But she did a little study of like 29,000 part numbers. And of those part numbers, of that 29,000 part number sample she did, we had about 3.44% of our specs documented, right? And you just can't do that. So she made this cool slide that the part numbers are Jupiter, and poor little Mercury is our packaging data, right? And so it was really just absolutely a failure all the way across the board. And looking at that, how can you improve things if you don't know what to improve? So this current state versus our company goals, I thought it was an easy case to make, right? Not everybody did. So we made this case. We said, hey, we need a new system. Then we started evaluating all the options out there. There were 3 major competitors that kind of came up there with it. And we did I used to be a customer experience, user experience guy at Caterpillar as well. So we held a couple workshops, kind of said, hey, what do we got? We got to have the gaps from the stakeholder perspective. So we got done with those, chose a system. We did a C&E matrix. Compliance stood out as one of the major gaps we had. And list pros and cons. I published a white paper. It was a lot of work to say Spec-Right was the right thing we needed. And so we chose the system, and I thought, hey, we're great. We're good to go. I thought I had all my stakeholders listed out, but I'm a bit of a ready, fire, aim kind of guy. And so we went into the trough of sorrow. Now, for those of you that don't know what the trough of sorrow is, it's when you think you're doing great, you're on a very high note, and then all of a sudden you fell off a cliff and things are a disaster, right? And so we fell in. I didn't have all the stakeholders, the important ones, listed out. I didn't have kind of a robust communications plan. And so I had to kind of go back to the drawing board. We did it. We got permission finally to move forward. So we started our pilot, successful pilot. We learned a couple things like, hey, packaging engineers have a ton of stuff to do. They want a new system, but they can't full-time kind of work on that system and help us deploy it. So we needed help there. Procurement was another piece. We said, hey, we got to engage them better, differently. So, but just a very successful pilot. So we're back up. We're out of the trough, right? Nope, back in it. So, you know, when people come up to you and say, hey, we need to have a conversation about, right? And you got that 3 dots, like the ellipses. You're like, hey, okay, hopefully it's about a bonus. Maybe it's my rating. You know, we'll have a great conversation here. But then when they end that with the budget, right? That's never going to be a good situation, right? So, you know, people change, things change, you know, just conditions change. And so we came out and we said, hey, 2023 budget and 2024 budget, they have to be flat. right? We were paying $0 for the old system. And believe me, we got value out of that, right? So I was like, all right, we've got to really work to bring Spec-Right on board, and we've got to figure out how to get that in there. And I quite honestly expended a good amount of political goodwill because I don't like to take no for an answer. And, but we got things kind of back on track again. We were able to work with Spec-Right. They were wonderful to work with through this whole kind of trial. And it was good. We got permission to move forward. We found the money, and yay, we're back up top, right? We're right and ready for phase 1 deployment. Let's get this done. No, you got to go back in the trough. And so, you know how it's a great idea to have run your old system in parallel with your new system? All right, you tend to want to do that. Well, due to the budget stuff, they came to me and said, you got to kill that new system, or that old system. You got to kill it sooner than you want to, right? And they gave us like a couple weeks to kill it. And just, we were going to go big bang, deploy globally with Spec-Right like that, right? So we came up to it, and when you talk about the protagonist of the story, I got 2 people in a room with me today that are on my team. One's my Sophie Watson. She's my environmental and regulatory manager, and then we got Harsha Narayana, who is, he's a packaging engineer, but he plays an IT guy on the side. So he's kind of our systems guy. They led the project. We split it up into process and IT, and they got that done. And I was really super impressed because we found out we needed to kill the old system quickly. I think it was October-ish. And I don't know about you, but if your business works all the way up to Christmas, after Thanksgiving, you got something special because we tend to, lay low for a while after Thanksgiving. And so by December 11th, we did a soft launch with it, and that was an amazing, fast thing to do. And like I said, we went live Monday, which is fantastic. We got to kill the new system by February 11th, or the old system, sorry. And so it really was an effort. And the Spec-Right people, the Micronet people are also, protagonists. I couldn't believe we worked through it. We worked through all the problems, got this thing going. And, every good story, the villain becomes a hero, at the end. So compliance, you can say, oh man, we got to comply. We've got to drive all this regulatory change. It can be a pain, but actually it's a great catalyst for change, right? You can say, and that, like it did with my boss, now the accountants aren't normally swayed by that, right? If it's not going to happen next quarter, we can put that off. But I didn't think so, and so we got back on track, got this thing launched. And big thanks to the teams, big thanks to compliance, big brother out there helping us make the case for change. Now, step 6 is kind of normal. It's not a trough. And so we're trying to stabilize operations. We've been going at it for 3 days, which is great. But we'll see what the future brings for us on that. Every great story has a through line. And I think our through line is really communicate. Talk to your stakeholders. If you think you've communicated enough, you haven't. You've got to constantly be out there just pushing your case and pushing the case for compliance, pushing the case for, just being out there and saying, hey, we've got to do things right. And we can't do it without the right data. We can't do it without the right system. All right, so looking to the future. I wish we just had 30,000 part numbers to put in. We have lots, and we have no specs on any of them. So we need to gather both the new and legacy part numbers, along with our outbound packaging data. We have none of our specs for our outbound packaging. That just blows me away. We've got to get that in place, especially when you talk EPR, plastics tax, all these other things that are kind of coming at you. If you don't have that data, you're going to be in big trouble. We also, bringing on packaging technicians. So this is a shop level position, and these folks are going to go out and start really gathering some of these specs for us. We're going to start with the most important specs and kind of work our way down. But we've got, I think, 4 of them we've finally brought on for this purpose. I'm going to bring on another 6, I hope, this year. And so that's really going to help us out. We have something unusual. And so I mentioned Sophie, our environmental and regulatory manager. Came out of the food industry. She's a packaging technologist. I think that's what they call them in the UK. And just has a passion for the environment. And so get yourself one of these people. You have to do this. I didn't know how that was going to work. And when Sophie started the job, it was like, okay, what are we going to do? And now we're like, oh my goodness, we have so much stuff we can't do, right? And so if you can, go out, find a head count for that, get that person on your team, and no, you cannot have mine. So we're very happy to have Sophie on the team and to be able to focus on that. Of course, the accountants, right? Again, I mentioned they just really don't get moved by some things. You know, compliance issues are only a problem with the accountants when you get fined. And so I had to sign up for $1.3 million in value proposition reduction, cost reduction this year. And so this is a tough thing for us, but we think we can get it. Just alone, when we look at entering that data into the old system versus the new, we think we're going to save about $321,000 with that. So we're going to save about 6,000 labor hours, which is pretty phenomenal. And that's just aftermarket. That's not even our first fit. We've got accelerated revenue, because when you bring products to market faster, you make more money. We can do that. We can accelerate our VPI program. Quite frankly, we don't track quality issues like we should. And we think just by a 10% reduction, we can get about $150K out of that. I'm being really conservative, I think. And then we can reduce our packaging spend. Our aftermarket philosophy right now is every part gets its own box. And it's just a lot of packaging SKUs. And so we're going to have to rationalize those, harmonize them. And we think just a 1% reduction there can get us about $230K just on for us. So this made the accountants happy. And I was able to kind of get that through. But lessons learned, engage early, often, and always. Like I said, I'm not a great communicator. I like to just put my nose down and work and then just let everybody follow. But you can't always do that. And you shouldn't do that. So, that's Sophie from the project management standpoint, she's a fantastic communicator and networker. So that's really helped us out big time. Determine gaps in a current system, and that can be pretty easy if you've got compliance issues coming at you. Review and update your stakeholders list. You got to constantly do that because, again, people change so much. And, of course, conflicting priorities, they always slow down change. So you got to keep pushing. And then finally, there's a difference between alignment and agreement. At Cummins, we like to say, I'm aligned, right? But that doesn't mean yes. And that was one of my biggest lessons learned. So, alignment means I understand how you're thinking about this. Hey, great. I'm glad you understand it, but we need permission. We need to go. And so that's where you need to get the agreement. So on the budget, on resources, and then finally that senior leadership. And then you've always got to watch out for that middle management that's afraid of change, right? Your senior leaders can be engaged, but if your middle management is not, you're going to be in trouble. So you need to engage. So, all right, I have 24 seconds left. I did, nailed it. All right, so thank you very much. Appreciate the time and attention. And if you have any questions or anything like that, I'll catch me at a break. So thank you.